Question 1. A compliance officer at a financial institution notices that a customer's transactions frequently involve high-risk jurisdictions. What immediate action should the compliance officer take? Option A. Close the customer's account to mitigate risk. Option B. Request additional documentation to understand the nature and purpose of the transactions. Option C. File a suspicious activity report without further investigation. Option D. Conduct an immediate audit of the entire AML program. The correct answer is option B. Request additional documentation to understand the nature and purpose of the transactions. The compliance officer should request additional documentation to understand the nature and purpose of the transactions. This step is essential for assessing the legitimacy of the customer's activities and ensuring compliance with regulations. Closing the customer's account to mitigate risk, A, is an extreme measure that may not be justified without first understanding the context of the transactions. Filing a suspicious activity report without further investigation, C, may lead to unnecessary escalation and could overlook important details that would clarify the situation. Conducting an immediate audit of the entire AML program, D, is excessive in this context and does not directly address the specific issue with the customer's transactions, which can be resolved through targeted documentation requests. Extended rationale, the correct answer remains B, request additional documentation to understand the nature and purpose of the transactions. The best way to analyze this question is to identify the precise AML, compliance, investigative, regulatory, or financial-crime principle being tested and then connect the facts in the stem to that principle. The correct option is the strongest choice because it most directly addresses the specific circumstances described in the question. In professional compliance work, conclusions should be based on the complete pattern of available information rather than on a single isolated fact, and the same approach is useful when answering examination questions. The other answer choices may contain concepts that are valid in different circumstances, which is why they can initially appear plausible. However, a distractor should be eliminated when it introduces a different legal process, investigative step, risk indicator, reporting obligation, authority, or control than the one actually described in the stem. A useful exam strategy is to compare the defining feature of every option with the strongest clue in the question. The correct answer should fit those facts without requiring assumptions that the question never provides. From an AML and financial-crime perspective, unusual activity does not automatically establish criminal conduct. Financial institutions generally assess activity in context by considering factors such as the customer's known profile, expected transaction behavior, source and destination of funds, ownership information, products and services used, geographic exposure, transaction frequency and size, supporting documentation, and applicable regulatory requirements. When the observed activity differs materially from what would reasonably be expected, the institution may need to conduct additional review, document its analysis, and follow its established escalation or reporting procedures as appropriate. For examination purposes, focus first on what the question is specifically asking the institution, investigator, compliance officer, or other party to identify or do. Next, separate the facts that are merely background information from the facts that actually determine the answer. Finally, test each option against those decisive facts. Following that process confirms B, request additional documentation to understand the nature and purpose of the transactions, as the most precise response. This reasoning method is valuable because it helps distinguish closely related AML concepts and makes the underlying principle easier to apply when a future question presents the same issue using a different scenario.